Hello and welcome back to another YouTube video. Today I'm going to be covering the patch 13.6 top lane tier list. So if you enjoy the content, like and subscribe. We're close to 300 and I'll be really happy to hear that. So let's get into it. To begin with, covering a couple of the balance changes for 13.6. We had changes towards Vayne, Mundo and Acel, of which none of them are going to move. The Vayne ones were fairly power neutral. People are still experimenting with builds. There are certain things you can do. PTA with Essence Reaver, Qmax is an option, like a more heavy AD build with a couple of defensive items to finish off. And then, of course, the on-hit still isn't bad. It still works quite nicely in the situations where you need it. You just have to be able to pick where you're building, like going over these builds. And in turn, Vayne has a lot more flexibility as a pick. You can pick into more squishy comps because you can go the Qmax build with Essence. But overall, people are still experimenting. I'm going to leave her in BE for the moment. It seems like it was fairly power neutral. It just brought her Qmax build up towards her on-hit build. Mundo isn't going to move. They were very small changes, mostly towards jungle, and a bit of a health regen nerf late for a bit of a health regen buff early. And Acel, not going to move. Acel is still relatively okay in the top lane. He got hurt a lot more in the mid lane, but as a top lane, you just pick him as a neutralizer who can just scale up. You don't want to pick him into bad matchups. Just making sure you pick him where he can work or flexing him into the top lane is the best way to play him. So he'll continue to be in B tier. Not bad champ. Malphite, I'm actually going to move into the S tier. I should have moved Malphite into the S tier last patch. I just kind of glanced over it. There are a lot of strong champs in the S tier at the moment, and Malphite quite nicely fits in. He counters a lot of the top lane champs, and they keep giving him buffs. This is like the third not patch in a row, but like third time since the item changes in the preseason where Malphite has been buffed, and overall it's put him in a state where he is an S tier champion. You go something like Iceborne or Jackshow, depending on what the game provides and whether you need more armor or more just generalistic defenses. And in turn, yeah, he's a really strong champion at the moment. Definitely play him. He's very simple and answers a lot of the top lane meta. Riven, I'm going to move up. Riven has actually had quite a nice time since the changes towards her passive. Do it scaling nicer throughout the early game, and then doing a bit more damage towards turrets with the passive, and be able to see under your health bar. That's also just a nice QOL. But combined with the fact that people are itemizing her better, the Ravenous into Eclipse is the best way to go. Don't go Gore Drinker. Gore Drinker is a bad item on most champions. You are better off going some sort of Lethality Mythic or Stride Breaker. So just avoid Gore Drinker where you can. Riven, good A tier champ. If you're good at her, definitely S tier. So yeah, keep that in mind. But for the average player, BA. So yeah, around there. Gragas, I'm actually going to move up. Gragas, I will continue to say, is a lot better mid and a lot better jungle. Gragas top hasn't got anywhere near the amount of... the Gragas top takes up a role within the team comp, which you usually have filled by the mid laner or the jungler. And tank Gragas just isn't as good as the Roa Seraphs, but more bruiser AP Gragas. So you want to avoid picking him in games where your comp doesn't really allow for it. But overall, he's still a good neutralizer, so I'm going to put him in the B tier. And overall, his itemization is very strong at the moment, especially if you're going the Roa Seraphs combo. The next jump I'm going to move on to is Teemo. Teemo, I'm going to move up into the B tier. This is more of just over time, Teemo has still continued to perform on a relatively okay level. He's a bit above average. I wouldn't want to keep him below average. And overall, just a lot of the top laners at the moment are decently above average and relatively even compared to each other. A lot of them have glaring weaknesses, but a lot of them have glaring strengths as well. Something like Urgot can't play into Warden's Mail, but is really good with the current Lethality Mythics. Prowler's Claw makes him really strong, can also abuse Eclipse, and overall just makes him a relatively good champion as long as you're avoiding Warden's Mail users. And the last one I want to move up is Lydia. Lydia is at least being picked into matchups where she is strong. Things like Cho'Gath and Silence she can beat quite comfortably. Just kites them around, does a lot of burn damage with things like things like the Demonics, the Andries, and Rylai's. You build something similar to a Mordekaiser, but opt into a Mana Mythic usually. You can go Riftmaker, but Riftmaker being in a pretty bad spot at the moment, I'd definitely recommend going the Andries. So that's, that's kind of why Lydia is going to be moving up. And Jace, I'm actually going to move down. People just aren't itemizing Jace correctly. People seem to be going backwards with this champion. They seem to be itemizing Gore Drinker in games where Gore Drinker just isn't great. Building Eclipse is by far and away his best mythic. You want to go that in most games. There are games where Gore Drinker can work if you're into more Bruiser heavy, if you're wanting to be more front lane heavy and Bruiser kind of Jace. But just going with Raw Eclipse, the Eclipse or Prowler's build and into Yomu's and just going really lethality heavy is the way to go. You want to be able to close out games early on Jace, and you want to be able to use your skill and mechanics to kind of just power through the game. You're not looking to really scale. He can scale into a really good poke champion, but for the most part, you are just looking to get those one shots and just power through towers with your high lethality builds. Overall, not much is changing with the top lane. A couple of things will change next patch. Things like Sejuani and Wukong being nerfed obviously are going to have effects towards the top lane as well, because both these champs are played top. But for the most part, a lot of top lane, as of the moment, has a lot of champions who sit quite nicely, and a couple of them are being brought down, but yeah, but most of the champs which perform badly in the top lane are either because they are very niche champions and they can only be picked into like certain matchups, things like Silas you're only really going to see into Malphite, or some of them are just played more for fun and don't actually perform that great into a lot of the top lane matchups. Things like Akali, Lee Sin, Graves, all still played a bit, but not as much as they used to be. They have had times where they have been really strong in the top lane, but for the moment, they are relatively weak. So, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.